record this?
Yeah, hey, this is Baseline. So I'm here with Brighton, and he's talking about, this is a writer here in San Francisco. He's talking about, take me from where you left off.
Okay, so I will actually fast backtrack a little bit. My writer name is Richard Tallons. Tallons is spelled T-A-L-Y-N-S. My writer name is Richard Tallons, T-A-L-Y-N-S, that's the spelling. As a writer, I write...
That's a great story. My favorite part was the part about the spelling.
So, you see, as a writer and...
That's a writer joke. Writers can be dickheads to each other.
But as for myself, you see, I feel like that we have to use the power of the pen over the sword.
Okay, so talk to me about what you were saying about the buildings behind you and how this is a waste of something.
Okay, so yeah, so you see, not just the buildings behind me, but all the dead concrete skyscrapers we see in these, quote, major cities, that is the problem, not travelers, and they're definitely not, quote, homeless people. It's definitely the dead urban forests that this dead concrete has created. And allow me to elaborate very simply.
Please.
Everyone's familiar with the bubonic plague, right? It hit Beijing, it hit the capital of Iran, and it hit Constantinople. What do all those places have in common? They're all big cities. So who's the unsanitary barbarian now? Was it the nomadic tribes? No. It was the so-called civilized industrial people. They've always been the people with diseases and health problems. Well, guess what? They're doing something wrong.
The odds of getting it are much higher in an urban environment anyway. So
because you know why? Because we're separated from the earth. We're separated from...
Oh, okay. So the more in the urban environment, obviously, yes.
Because we're not built to live separated from our mother, from the mother goddess.
So what's your advice on this? What do you think?
What was that? My advice on what?
Yeah, on that. I mean, so what can we do to get closer to the earth?
Well, what we can do is we should create buildings with traditional folk agricultural and carpentry methods. Like, for example, in Scandinavia, they have houses made out of sod.
So in other words, get rid of industrial housing.
Yes.
In other words, the form of housing. And so what you're basically saying is, and tell me if I'm wrong, and
Yes.
I'll know from your expression, obviously, is throw away the blueprint for housing and get something that's more back down to earth. And so the guy that does, let's just be real, the inspection that comes by and says, hey, that's not to code, can't say, wow, your lean-to isn't legal.
Well, that partially, but what I'm talking about is the complete restructuring of this entire society, city by city, neighborhood by neighborhood.
Whoa,
So see, when I write, I use historical fantasy elements to illustrate the proper way of life. Like, for example,
So if you could be in front of the city council right now, what would you have if you had 8 seconds to say something? Because we're running out of tape.
Okay. Techies need to go, or we drive them out. They're ruining families and neighborhoods, and they're also bringing in a lot of pollution and mechanics. They need to go.
All right, I love this man. I'd work on that one. Spaceline.